So I just want to say welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. I know there's a lot of interest in this topic, which is the Brookville Road sidewalk in the Village of Martin's Additions. Today, I have the honor of introducing Jason Azar, our engineer for this project. Jason has the plans almost ready, almost finalized here, and has already started having conversations with the State Highway Administration, which, as you all know, Brookville Road is a state highway, so we have to comply with their kind of rules and standards. So Jason's going to walk us through the plan tonight. And Jason, I'll let you start by just introducing yourself to everybody.
Great. Thank you. My name is Jason Azar uh, with Clark Azar and Associates, the civil engineer that's been hired by the village to prepare the plans. Morgan Durham from our office is also on. She's the engineer that's working on the project with me. And I do you want me just to jump in, Michael?
Yeah, go for it. And we'll open it
So
up at the afterwards for questions and everything.
yeah, I'll keep it simple and brief, just to give you an overview. So we started working on the project earlier this year, worked through some things with Michael and got some easement information prepared based on some concept plans. Morgan from our office has been in contact with District 3 of SHA, and we have been talking to them for about 2 months at this point. We have gotten comments back from several departments within SHA, and Morgan's been addressing the comments as we receive them, so that we can make our formal permit application coming up here shortly. I guess pending results of this meeting and some upcoming potential meetings with individual residents. So that's kind of a backdrop of where we are. So the plans that I'm going to show have been reviewed by several departments within SHA as a cursory review, so that when we do make our application, hopefully most of the big items have already been addressed, and we're down to crossing T's and dotting I's on the permits. So am I allowed to share my screen, Michael?
Yes, I believe so. I made you the co-host.
Okay.
If you see a green button at the bottom. Yep.
Yep. Okay. So we've prepared a set of site plans. I won't bore you with all the notes and details. Some of them are just standard notes that are required. We'll be obtaining a permit from State Highway Administration to conduct the work. That permit will cover the sidewalk construction and any traffic control that needs to occur during construction. We will also be contacting Department of Permitting Services and pursuing a small land disturbance application. The project will disturb more than 5,000 square feet of area, removing the old sidewalk and putting the new one back. But there's no major grading activities, and we feel like this should fit into a small land disturbance activity application. And we'll be moving forward with that shortly after we make our submission to the State Highway Administration. So the scope of work for the project is a replacement and upgrade of the sidewalk on the east side of Brookville Road, starting at Turner Lane and continuing south to Quincy Street. There's an existing sidewalk along that stretch. However, it's not ADA compliant. It has some issues with the width is variable and doesn't meet current standards, and also the cross slope of the sidewalk itself is in some areas more than 2%, which is not compliant. And there's some lips or gaps that exceed the allowable tolerances as well. So those are items that are going to be corrected through this process. There's a couple areas, I think, as most people in there that have driven up and down there know, that a couple of the intersections, some work has been done, in recent years, which will be tying into and leaving in place. The stuff that's been done recently that is compliant will be leaving and just matching into. We're not here to kind of tear out things that are already in good shape. So I'm going to, this is a typical cover sheet that we would prepare. We have some geometrical layout information for a contractor. We typically provide a baseline alignment for them, and that allows them to be able to lay this out in an appropriate manner, and so that it gets built in the right location. So we provide this information to them. So I'm just going to jump into the plan itself, starting at Turner Lane. Turner Lane would be redoing the curb ramps and side and crosswalk to at that intersection, and continuing southbound with the sidewalk. One thing I'll note, and this is something that we've worked through with State Highway, is that we'll be restriping the yellow center line along Brookville Road, so that there is a 10-foot lane between the yellow stripe and the white stripe that would go kind of along the edge of the road. And then we would have the new gutter, curb and gutter, that would go just beyond that. So there should be roughly 11 feet from the yellow line in the middle to the curb. And that's what we've worked through with State Highway and what they will allow. So the alignment of the sidewalk and the double yellow line have been adjusted in these plans to make sure that we maintain a minimum lane width that State Highway Administration prefers to have. So as we move forward, the sidewalk in majority of locations will be 5 feet wide, and that is from the back of the curb to the edge of the sidewalk. So the actual sidewalk panel itself is 5 feet wide. There will be a couple areas that we'll notice, and Morgan might be able to help me out with those exact areas, where there's some existing stone walls, and we'll be getting applying for a waiver from State Highway to go down to slightly less than 5 feet to not disturb those walls. It'll be noted, though, that the curb itself is about 6 inches wide, so that there will be a flat surface close to 5 feet wide for somebody to traverse, even though that the top of the curb is not counted towards sidewalk. It still can be used to traverse north-south. That being said, along the route, as many people are aware, there are numerous sidewalks or lead walks that tie into the existing sidewalk. So along this entire route, those will be adjusted, and that part of that work will be included in this contract and these plans to adjust. Here's one example here at 7003. There's a brick walk. We will be instructing the contractor to reconstruct so that the walk will tie into the new sidewalk elevation and match up. What we don't want is for the walk to be left at one elevation and the new sidewalk to be at a different elevation. We want them to blend together. So we'll be reconstructing small pieces of these so that we can have smooth transitions. So the other thing I'll mention, as we head south, there are a number of driveways that cross the sidewalk. And we have worked with Michael and with State Highway Administration to develop some details so that we can have an ADA compliant sidewalk while still maintaining driveway access. And that'll be done through the use of a mountable curb in those areas, so that there still will be a little bit of a lip as you pull into the driveway. And This will allow water as it drains down Brookville Road to stay in the road. We don't want it to be flush with the driveway where water could potentially go into a property. We want any water running down the road to stay in the road. And then it allows us to maintain our ADA compliance. So where there's a driveway apron, we have a mountable curb that's only 3 inches tall. And then everywhere else, the curb would be 6 inches tall. And these small little areas here, I'm just trying to get to my little marker. Yep, okay, there it is. We have annotations I'm circling there for so you can see. That is an indication that the sidewalk will drop down from the 6 inches above the road down to the 3 inches where the driveway apron is, and it will go back in between so that there are depressions at all the driveway aprons so that people can get in and out of their driveways while still staying ADA compliant and making sure that water will maintain its flow pattern and staying in the right of way. And that's typical of all the driveway entrances that we have. Doesn't want to give up my pen. There we go. Okay, so as we head south, we come to Shepherd. This is one where we'll also be reconstructing the radius and the crosswalk and the curb ramps in this location. We'll be building them to SHA standards in this location as well. Here is an example of an area where the work for the sidewalk will have to extend onto a private property a small bit. And Michael has been working with a survey company and residents to get easements so that the work can be conducted and maintain a smooth sidewalk and rebuild what is disturbed on the private properties. This line right here is your right-of-way line, where the limit of the state highway right-of-way is. And you'll see in a lot of cases along this road, it's not parallel to the road itself. This is an example here where it goes in and then back out. And in a lot of cases, the existing sidewalk is already outside of the right-of-way line. And Michael's working to bring that all into compliance now and make sure it's in appropriate easements. Similarly, as we head south, just past Shepherd, we have a series of driveway aprons that will be built in the same manner as the one that I had described earlier. We have our double yellow line that we'll be constructing. We'll have a white striped line along the gutter pan, and then the concrete curb and gutter. And it's in essence the same section that we're going to have along this whole stretch. There are a couple of areas that where people have, and I'll just bring this up, and this is more of a general comment. There's an existing water meter, and several people have water meters along this route. Any utilities that are encountered, those the contractor will be instructed to adjust those to be flush with the new sidewalk elevation, and that goes for water valves, gas valves, water meter boxes, and anything similar to that. There are some minor areas where there'll be a little bit of demolition. This is 6811, and you'll see that there's an existing stone wall that kind of sticks out pretty close to, well, into the right of way, but up to where the existing sidewalk is. A portion of that will have to be cut back and removed to allow for the wider sidewalk to be put in. and that is typical along the stretch. Cummins, same thing here, rebuilding in this area. I'll bring attention to this area. There is an existing crosswalk. It's a kind of mid block at this point. We were not planning on rebuilding anything on the other side of Brookville Road, but through Morgan's discussions with SHA, they had instructed us that they were going to make us have the receiving ramp on the opposite side be compliant as well. So knowing that it's not something that they're going to let go, we've included it in the plan set now so that it doesn't come up again later. Raymond Street will be reconstructing slightly to become compliant. In all of these cases where sidewalk is adjacent on the side streets, we're going to have our 5-foot sidewalk, and then we will do a transition down to match existing. You can see that this angles in right here to match existing, and that'll be typical of most. We are doing everything we can to avoid fire hydrants and utility poles. Those are time consuming and costly to relocate. So that is something that we are have been cognizant of to make sure our layout works with the stuff that's existing out there. Let's see, as we continue to head south. Yes, when we get to Bradley, this is one of those ones that we were talking about earlier, where the work at Bradley, these existing curb ramps that were put in are okay as is and are compliant. And so those won't be touched. We'll just be matching into the areas where they're not compliant and continuing it through. Similar to where we were just north of here, there's an existing crosswalk at this location. And SHA has instructed us to make sure that the receiving ramp on the opposite side of Brookville Road is compliant. So since the current one is not, we're going to have to replace that as part of this project.
Jason, just as a FYI here, that is a new crosswalk across Brookville Road at Bradley that this call for plans. There is a crosswalk across both sides of Bradley on either side of Brookville Road, but that's the new. That's the new.
Oh, that's okay. All right, I'm gonna just work on the color there. Might make it a little darker. All right, and then we're finishing up and going down till we get to Quincy, and that's the end of the project. I wanted to show you briefly some, and I know these are engineering drawings, which I'm happy to discuss maybe more in detail with anybody that has specific questions. But I just wanted to kind of go through a couple of these details to kind of get for everybody kind of get an idea of what I was talking about when I was talking about the driveway aprons and the sidewalk sloping down. So this is a typical driveway apron. And the sidewalk is required to have a cross slope of 2% or less. And so this is where we have our 3-inch mountable curb here, a relatively flat section of sidewalk, and then tie into the existing driveway. And then on each side of it, the sidewalk will slope down to match it. This is kind of a section cut through where the curb will be with a mountable curb and the sidewalk, and then a tie into the driveway apron there. And to do this, I think I had mentioned that, oops, let's go a little slow, that predominantly the curb is 6 inches tall, but at the driveway aprons, it's going to be a mountable curb that's only 3 inches tall. And so we'll have a transition area here that will transition the curb from a vertical curb that's 6 inches tall to a mountable curb that's 3 inches tall. So, and that's really about it. The one area I hoping Morgan can maybe chime in is, do you have the address of the area where we're going to be saving the walls?
Not in front of me. It's maybe mid-block, um between Shepherd Street, maybe. Uh the places where we are saving walls, they tend to be very more ornate walls with they're taller, holding more back. We try to save those wherever we could. If they're just simple brick walls, uh, those would be cut and, use any excess material as reuse as much material as we can so that, we keep everyone's driveway aprons looking nice and, the landscaping around there, try to keep it in as much intact as possible. If you can see to the right of the screen, there is like in that case, there is a small maybe 2 or 3 brick landscaping wall that would just be pushed to the new back of the sidewalk.
And reconstructed.
Yeah, when the sidewalk's reconstructed.
Yeah, this one 6817. That's the one I was kind of looking for. There's 2 existing walls that will be saved and will remain, and then there's an existing tree, and I think we try to be cognizant of that. So we have a note there to hand excavate. In this particular area, the contractor will not be allowed to use mechanical equipment to do any excavation. They'll have to hand excavate in that area so that we don't damage the tree roots, with the goal of saving that tree.
And Jason, the walls are all marked on here, whether they're planning to remain or not. Towards the south end, there are several of the larger walls that are kind of right at the 5-foot mark that we are going to remain.
Yeah.
Brick
So
walls to
these
remain.
are labeled, this is 6701, existing brick walls to remain. Now, these walls kind of have dog legs to them, where the walkway is and where the driveway is. So those will be remaining.
And as you can see there, the sidewalk is slightly shortened. We'll have to submit a waiver to SHA to just say, hey, that this sidewalk's not technically going to be 5 foot wide, but if you add in the top of curb, it will be. So I don't see them pushing back very much to have to reconstruct those walls.
So this is the area that we were just referring to. This is a 5-foot sidewalk here, and you can see it's narrowing down about 6 inches to accommodate the existing walls. And then it goes back to 5 feet when it gets to the other side. But generally it's 5 feet everywhere except for a couple small areas. And there was, I'm trying to remember there really are no, aren't many drainage improvements as part of this project. This is one here. It's down at the corner of Turner and Brookville. There's an existing storm drain inlet. The inlet top itself is not an acceptable cross slope. So we'll be modifying just the top of the inlet so it has an acceptable cross slope. We're not intending on completely replacing the inlet or moving it in any way. We'll just be modifying it so it has an acceptable cross slope. And that usually just means replacing the top.
A quick thing to be aware of, and there are some places where we're going to have to move fence lines back to accommodate the new sidewalk. Contractor will be instructed to reuse as much material as they can, and if they can't reuse it, they'll replace it in kind.
Yep.
I think
this is at 3518 is one of those. it's an existing wood fence that we don't want to change the look of if we can avoid that.
And just a note for you all, that house is currently under construction, and I think they've removed most of the fence already since we did our survey work. So they might have solved
Okay.
that problem for us. And actually, that raises an interesting question for me, Jason. A couple houses along this stretch are interested in putting in circle driveways. I know one person has already gone through the permitting process for that and is kind of thinking about it and looking at hiring an engineer for their project. And this house here at 3518 is also interested in putting in a circle driveway and has submitted plans that they plan to submit to State Highway as well. So is there a way to kind of time it so we put in that driveway apron for them, or would we try to just, we'll match whatever's there. If they put in a driveway apron now, we'll come back and fix it like we do all the others.
Well, so a couple of things. I think it probably makes sense to try to coordinate a little bit with those folks, and have them put aprons if they're going to install the aprons. Share some of these details with them so they construct their aprons in a similar manner with an acceptable cross slope, and then we can just tie into it. So we're not redoing something that was just done, or have them only go up to the back of the sidewalk with their apron, and that this project would put in just the apron and sidewalk portion of it to match their driveway. But some coordination between the two may be beneficial for both parties.
Okay, I'll follow up offline about those two situations that I'm aware of.
Yeah, if they could provide us with copies of their plans, that would probably allow us to make sure that the locations work with anything else that we're doing.
Absolutely. Okay. Is there anything else that you can think of? I want everyone on the call and that listens to this recording afterwards to understand that, a massive amount of effort has gone in for years now in documenting every public utility along this thing, every telephone pole, every water meter that's near this, every pipe that, discharges rainwater onto this sidewalk right now has been surveyed and reviewed and inspected by myself and contractors that we've hired. And I know Jason's done a really good job with his team going through all these details and having conversations with State Highway already. So we're well on our way, but I'm sure there's a lot of questions, and this is the first chance that many of you on this call are getting a look at the plan. So I know this is high level engineer talk, but I do want to open this up for questions here. If there is specific, questions about specific properties or specific elements, if you live along this stretch of road, what we'll do is we'll set up a separate conversation with you, with myself and Jason, if needed, is willing to come and meet with us. So if there is specific concerns, we can carry those on afterwards. But if you have a question now that is related to the overall project, or comments for Jason or me or praise, those are always accepted. So I'll go ahead and open it up now. If you want to raise your hand, we can start there. I see Nancy's iPad is the first one that has a hand raised. Nancy, do you want to unmute yourself? Okay,
Okay, I'm sorry, I've got it now. Hi, I'm Nancy Ferris from Quincy Street, and I have a general question about the sidewalk. Does it have a lip on the side along Brookville? That is a small raised edge, so you know when you're falling off the edge into the road. Does that question make sense?
It does make sense, and the answer is it does not.
Oh dear. Why is that?
In a lot of cases, it's construed as a tripping hazard. I can understand there is both sides to that. The curbs are typically flush with the sidewalk adjacent to it. In this particular case, we're planning on having the sidewalk 6 inches above the roadway generally, except for at the driveway aprons. I know right now the curb is in rough shape in a lot of areas, and in a lot of cases, it's only an inch or two above the pavement. So there isn't a lot of vertical separation or protection from motorists. I mean, the intention is now to be more typical and have that vertical separation, which is 6 inches, to have that protect pedestrians, and that is typical. It is atypical to have anything that would stick up above the sidewalk because of the risk for potential tripping. But I see the point that you have, that it could be a signal that you stay on the sidewalk side.
Exactly. Okay, well, thank you for your answer. I don't care for it. I also wanted to know about, did you say you were installing a new crosswalk at Bradley and Brookville?
Yes.
Great.
Will there be a stop sign there?
There will not be a stop sign there as part of this project. There is some movement to install a stop sign there, both from our side and from Section 3, which that ties into on the other side. I think both of us want there to be a stop sign included in this project. But this project, including the multiple engineers we've had look at it, have not come with that recommendation. This is just the crosswalk.
The plan so that SHA can at least take a look at it. If SHA is against it, then we can take it out. If SHA approves it, then we can put it in, and it'll be up to you guys whether or not you install it.
Well, one question: if you come north, or north on Brookville, when you go through Chevy Chase Village, there are 5 or 6 stop signs along there which slow people down. But once they hit Raymond, it's
Open season.
Open season. They just blast their way through.
Primrose.
Primrose. Beyond Primrose, you have to go all the way to Raymond before anybody stops, and there's a high speed in there. And apparently the village of Chevy Chase succeeded in getting a series of stop signs in there. And we ought to be looking at that too, because I've seen children and people trying to cross at Brookville, and they get halfway out in the road and a car comes flying down the road. And we're lucky that there hasn't been some kind of horrible accident.
Yeah, we have included a stop sign into our plans. Narrowing the lanes is also going to help slow people down. So I assume that SHA will not have any issues with a new stop sign.
So you have asked the State Highway Administration if they would be okay with us including stop signs as part of this project. Is that right?
At this location, right, Morgan?
Just at this location.
Understood. Yeah.
Replacing the one that is existing. Adding new striping to the roads just to make everything a little bit more clear.
Yeah. I think Morgan made a good point, is that the travel way is going to be narrowed, and that typically is a traffic calming measure. With a narrower lane, people generally slow down. So I hope maybe the combination of the two will improve the situation overall. But we have asked for the stop sign.
Great.
Thank you.
We'll see what we can do. I know everyone from my perspective is pro a stop sign and would advocate for that. So, and I've talked to both the Chevy Chase Village and Chevy Chase Section 3, and they're both in favor of this. And another note, that the sidewalk on the other side in Section 3, that's I guess on southbound traffic going the other direction, it kind of ends there at Chevy Chase Village. So if you're walking, towards Connecticut Avenue or something, you're actually on that side of the sidewalk, you're kind of forced to cross over there anyways, which is kind of the justification for putting in that additional crosswalk there, because otherwise you just end up on the side of the road.
Great, thank you.
Yep. Gene Sperling is next, I think.
Thank you so much, Jason and Michael. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can
I
hear
know
you.
everybody can always hear me. My questions were related to crosswalks because that's really, this all looks wonderful, Jason. Thank you. This is an incredible task you have undertaken to put all these pieces together of 200 years of history, and who knows who started it. Crosswalk's a big deal. I think it's very important, especially with the movement that we all heard about bike friendly, walk friendly. Connecticut Avenue, we're gonna put bike lanes, but we have to make it all walkable. Whoa, wait, I'm sorry. I think what's my point? My crosswalks across Brookville Road are very important. Not just at Bradley, but there's a couple other really important areas where people need to be able to cross the street, whether there's a stop sign there or not. I think getting across Brookville Road to the other side to then head toward the subway to head toward Connecticut Avenue. What other crosswalks, if any, have been discussed beside the one at Bradley?
The one at Raymond is also being redone as part of this project.
Correct.
Redone, but there's already a stop sign there. So what more would you do?
Well, that entire crosswalk will be updated, and both sides of it will be updated to include ADA warning strips and to be, I think it's wider as well, Jason, is that right?
Yeah, so the striping will be, for the crosswalk itself, would be updated to
10 feet wide.
yeah,
But
10
you've
10 feet
already got
wide.
you've already got stop signs there. Okay, you've got crossing guards at school time. It's not there that's my concern. It's going south. It's Bradley, it's Quincy, it's where you see people walking to get across. Anything besides just the existing crosswalks been considered?
The one at Bradley is being added as part of this project.
Okay,
So
what about something further south of there between the end of Section 3 and Chevy Chase Village?
this project only goes to the kind of the north side of Quincy Street. So so no, there's not an additional crosswalk across Brookville as part of this project.
Why hasn't it been discussed?
Well, it's being discussed right now.
Okay, good. All right. No, I do hope that somebody's got traffic data and pedestrian data and combine it with in the discussions about making the world more pedestrian friendly and bike friendly. This is the time to do it now. So, okay, I've said enough. Thank you, Michael, for everything you've done. And Jason, again, thank you for all your excellent work.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Okay, David, I think you were next.
Good evening, everybody. A couple questions. One, on the not VMA side, clearly there's a sidewalk there. It's out of scope for us, and it was upgraded at some point to become compliant, but there are a number of telephone poles and fire hydrants right in the middle of the sidewalk. It was, designed in kind of a sloppy way. So it may be 5 feet wide, but, there's a number of places where there's something like right in the middle that obstructs walking. I know Jason mentioned that there's been some effort to coordinate with stuff like that, but is there any of that plan for the future sidewalk, or is the entire, 5 feet clear of obstructions like that?
It's predominantly clear, except for the areas where we talked about, where we're trying to save the walls, where it's going to be maybe 4'6" or 4'8".
I will
it's
say
gonna-
there is one telephone pole that's gonna be sort of in the way, but there will still be the minimum 3-foot clearance for ADA compliance. I think it's in the middle of an existing driveway circle. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but there is one pole that's gonna be a little bit of a pain, but
Right. So ADA allows for an individual obstruction that's not more than 24 inches in length along the path of travel. So if you have 36 inches clear on one side of the obstruction and the obstruction's not more than 24 inches long, it is still considered compliant. I know that may sound funny, but we're dealing with the state highways ADA office for their review of this, and so they're the ones that will ultimately have a say as to what we're proposing is compliant. But everything is that Morgan's laid out is in accordance with ADA standards. But yes, there is that one. It's not going to be as bad as, I guess, maybe the other side, but you know, generally we're trying everything we can to keep stuff out.
Yeah.
There are some things that are somewhat unavoidable, like a stop sign, for instance. A stop sign has to, the octagon can't stick out into the travelway, so it has to be inboard. So that those will be positioned per SHA standards and manual on uniform traffic control devices. So those potentially, and stop signs are really the ones that are the critical ones. They can't be too far back. If visibility is good, if we can put it on the back side of the sidewalk, we will do that. If SHA says that that's not acceptable, then that would have to be, about 16 inches off the curb so that the octagon does not stick out into the travelway.
Right. So just a parting comment on that. I mean, this is going to be a once in a generation improvement for us. We won't, VMA won't do this again for 75 years. So if we just have one telephone pole that's obstructing into the sidewalk, I'd maybe recommend that we get a price from the utility to move it. I know it's going to be expensive. I've moved telephone poles before. I've spent upwards of $100 grand moving individual telephone poles. I hope that wouldn't be the cost here, but it seems like a lot of money to spend to go 95% of the way there and then to leave a telephone pole in the middle of the sidewalk, spreading it up, even if it technically meets ADA requirements to let you get by on one side or the other. So that's my parting comment. I'll let you and Michael discuss that. The last question I have is, what is the proposed permit timing and improvements timing here? It's clearly in for review. When is the anticipated, if everything goes well, kind of rubber stamp and the ability for VMA to start?
We would probably anticipate having permits sometime this winter for construction to start in the spring. Probably, I mean, you really want us. We're getting into a season where doing work would require probably cold weather protection on the concrete, which can be time consuming and difficult for the contractor. It probably makes sense to wait until the weather broke, late winter, early spring.
David, if you've moved telephone poles, then you probably know everything takes longer and costs more than you would expect. But and I might hit you up on that experience and gain some lessons learned from you there about moving telephone poles.
Yeah, it's not easy because there are 3 or 4 companies you usually have to coordinate with, cable, power, telecom. There's, multiple. It's a pain in the butt. But like I said, we're not going to do this again in the lifetime of anybody living in VMA today. So it makes sense to do it, especially if it's just one pole.
And I can say, as someone that's been on the sidewalk with a measuring tape and measured every single telephone pole to the current white line, it seems like we do have enough room everywhere to kind of fit a full sidewalk in around it. So I don't think it's going to be like Section 3. I know Jason was being careful in how he spoke there, but we're really we kind of get lucky here. There's several places where it's like, wow, that brick wall is exactly 5 feet away. So I'm not too worried about anything here. But there are a couple spots where it's tight. So Jason's right as well. But
yeah. And then the last thing, I'm sorry, it just at some point in the very near future, I'd like to sit down with you, Michael, and Jason, as the property owner with probably the longest linear footage of right-of-way along Brookville. And apparently, according to the plan that we're just seeing for the first time, some pretty intrusive improvements involving moving wrought iron fences that are concreted into the ground and everything. I need to have a meeting with you guys to understand kind of the full scope, because no one has clearly reached out to us. So I'll leave it with that. Thanks, everybody.
Absolutely.
What is the address?
6609.
Thank you for the good record. Yeah, I have a list of all the property owners, and I am planning to sit down and have those one-on-one conversations. I kind of wanted to get this general overview of the entire plan out of the way first, so kind of everyone knows what we're doing, and then following up with those one-on-one conversations. So that's coming, David.
Understood. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Lorch, you're next.
Yes, hi. Thanks for this meeting. I have a very technical question and then a much broader question. On the technical side, basically the current sidewalk, I understand, would be extended by roughly 3 feet, right? Right now it's roughly 3 and will become 6. Now, I had understood from previous conversations that the curb can be 10 feet from the middle of the road. And Jason now said 11 feet. Now that's already one of the 3 feet that will be expanded by, right? So it makes a huge difference. So if the rule is has to be 10, why do we stay 1 foot wider away and make the whole project worse?
So that is a SHA standard. The lane width is from the middle of the line to the middle of the line. And SHA does not want the white line, the outside line, to be within the gutter pan. So that is why your driving lane width is going to be 11 feet, but your striped lane width is going to be 10.
When you say they don't want it, is that a hard rule or it's just
Yeah, that one's a hard
Yeah.
them or
Yeah, because you have a vertical surface adjacent. So the curb is a vertical surface, and they don't want the 10-foot to be right at that vertical concrete surface because of potential for vehicles to rub and jump up the curb on that. So they want the lane, the white line that signifies the outside of the lane, to be at the edge of the concrete gutter pan, so that there's a foot between that and the actual vertical face of the curb. And that's something I don't think they're going to bend on. That not on a road like this, where they would encroach. If you think most people, when they're driving, they don't drive with their wheels in the concrete gutter pan of the curb and gutter. And if we narrowed it down to 10 feet from the yellow line to the face of the curb, you'd be forcing people to have their curb, their wheels kind of in the concrete gutter pan. And one thing that's, the asphalt cross slope is usually 2 to 3%, but the concrete gutter pan is 8%. So it would be an odd thing to use that as the part of the travelway.
Okay, thank you. I understand now. It would have been nice if that information had been correct beforehand when we discussed. The other question is a very general one. This is obviously a massive project from all the effort that's already gone into. The alternative would be presumably just to patch up and repair the current sidewalk. Now, if I'm not mistaken, there is no ADA compliant sidewalk that this future sidewalk would actually connect to. So the people with disabilities who would need the 6 feet would be able to get to the village center, but nowhere else from there, nowhere on the Chevy Chase Village side, nowhere within Martin's Additions, neither north or south of Brookville Road. So it's basically allowing people with disabilities to get easier from the village center to 16 houses. So these 16 houses would be the ones who benefit from better accessibility to the village center, because otherwise people with disabilities wouldn't get anywhere from that stretch. Therefore, my question, what is actually a total budget for all taxpayers combined? I mean, federal, county, us, etc., of this project, and therefore per house of the 16 houses that actually would be the main beneficiaries. So what's the total budget for this?
We don't have a set budget of how much the actual construction is going to cost yet. After we have permits, we can go out to bidding to select our contractor. and that'll be a negotiation with them. So I don't have a select answer for you. I would say that this sidewalk, of course, is going to benefit more than just 16 houses. It benefits the entire village and everyone that walks down that sidewalk.
If they require ADA compliant width, yes. But then they can only get to the 16 houses, not beyond. Okay, fine. I rest my answer. Thank my question.
If I can just chime in there, in a couple of to answer to get back to your first question, there are a few places where the center line, the double yellow line, is being adjusted closer to section 3 side, to make the lanes a little bit more uniform. So it's not just going from the existing yellow line over. We are in a few cases moving the yellow line a little bit so that it's not all coming out of the VMA side, if that makes sense.
Correct. Yeah, that's a good help. That's helpful there. The other note there on the, ADA compliant, that's required for us to build that. So it doesn't actually really matter if other places have upgraded their sidewalks or not. We are required to update our sidewalks to ADA compliance. And also,
a permit requirement, SHA is not going to let you build anything new that's not compliant.
Correct.
We won't be able to get a permit.
So even a mere repair of the current sidewalk would not be allowed?
The portion that you repair would have to be compliant.
And also it has other benefits, two people with strollers can pass each other on a sidewalk now, where they couldn't before. So, yep. Gene Sperling again.
Hi again. I'm sorry to do this again, but if you watch Brookville Road, I'm one house from Brookville Road. I'm up and down the road a million times a day. I watch these kids walking from Blessed Sacrament School. I watch them walking from Chevy Chase Elementary. I watch the mommies and the nannies and the daddies with these strollers and kids coming the other way. And it horrifies me. It is not just about ADA compliance. This is a state highway that goes through a major area of population with kids, families, everybody. And to say that we're doing this to meet ADA compliance, somebody needs to do a pedestrian count like we do traffic counts. So I fully support this. And it is so necessary. I cringe when I drive down the street and I see these kids on their scooters, they're fighting with each other, throwing backpacks at each other 2 feet from the curb. So you know what? I'm sorry, I know I'm ranting, but I've lived here for a very, very long time. And I think I've seen it all. So I fully support, dear God, making these sidewalks wide enough so that the strollers can pass, so kids can run and not, oh God, fall into the street. So anyway, it's not just ADA compliance, it's pedestrian cycles.
And not just 16 houses.
And not just 16 houses. It's hundreds of people who walk up and down this road every month. Okay, I'll stop talking.
No, Gene, I want to give you a bullhorn. Keep going. Andrew.
Sorry, can I just respond to that intervention? In that line of thought, what's the plan of the village to make other roads more walkable? I mean, there are roads in the village which have no sidewalk at all, let alone a 6-foot sidewalk. So if we're serious about general walkability, what is the grand plan? When will this stretch connect to other better sidewalks?
Well, when we repair sidewalks, we do upgrade them as well. But and as far as other projects, I firmly believe you need to take one thing at a time. And this is undoubtedly the most trafficked sidewalk in the village and the most dangerous and the most disrepair. So we're starting here, and I've been here 2 years now, and trust me, I have other ideas for future projects as well. Andrew, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, thank you.
I wanted to echo what Gene said, a couple of things on that front. As long as I've lived here in the village, I've been asking about this sidewalk. I've been asking about, speed bumps and all that. And when I joined the council in 2021, this was one of our priorities. And the state, it was not a priority for the state. So the only way we were able to do this is to commit our own funds to expedite this. And it's already, we're 3 years in. This is how long it takes to get this done. When my kids, I have a 14-year-old and two 11-year-olds, were much younger, I did not allow them to walk on that side of Brookville Road for fear of cars jumping that curb. So I mean, this is pedestrian safety as much as anything else. Our mandate here in the village of Martin's Additions is to take care of the village of Martin's Additions. We can't control what Section 5.3 and the village does of Chevy Chase. So we can only control so much. And there are other streets here, as Klaus said, that don't have any sidewalks, which is a horror to me. This is something I don't understand why that even is the case. But we've looked at Thornapple in the past, and there's cross-jurisdictional issues. We'd have to work with I don't know if that's Section 5. But we've looked at that. We've talked to residents, how they feel about it. The question is, what side of the road would we do sidewalks? But we're looking at those things too. But as Michael pointed out, one step at a time. And I want to give all the credit in the world to Michael for having worked on this for so long and pushing this through. So thank you, and thanks to Jason as well.
We're not there yet, but we're trying. Okay, Yasmina.
Hi. So I just want to add my thanks to the council and to Michael for getting this project done. I've been in the village for 23 years. I spent 7 years walking my kids to Chevy Chase Elementary down Brookville. It's been dangerous and in disrepair for way too long. So I think this is fantastic that it's happening. I was interested to hear from David that telephone poles can be moved, because I think that telephone pole in the middle of the sidewalk, even though it is, might remain, leaving it there might be ADA compliant. I think it's that, it creates an obstacle, and with bicycles and strollers, if there is a way, and if we have residents who have experience with how to move these things, or an engineer who can help us with that, I think it's worth adding to the mix while we're doing this project. And just lastly, I am curious, because I know from walking that sidewalk that there's an awful lot of water that flows that way. And it's not uncommon when it's raining for walkers to get completely soaked on the way to school because of the cars passing by. I was just wondering if there was what considerations were given to stormwater management. What are the constraints? As a member of the committee, I'm interested in understanding that, and also whether there was any consideration to making this a permeable surface as further up going towards Chevy Chase Circle. Thank you.
Yasmina, thank you for that question. Just so Jason understands the question, Yasmina is a new member of the Water Task Force that I know you worked with last year. So specific questions around that. And then, of course, the storm drains themselves, are not a product of the Village of Martin's Additions. Those are owned by the county, and those only go up a little bit past Turner Lane, heading south there, as I'm sure you know, Yasmina. But Jason can talk about how this project actually does increase the height of the curb, as well as redoes the gutter in the sidewalk. So hopefully water will flow better and not get trapped in so many spots. But Jason, is that right?
Yeah, so you'll primarily have a 6-inch tall curb to hopefully keep the water within the roadway. I do understand the proximity of the travel way to the sidewalk. There's nothing really that we can do about a tire splashing somebody on the sidewalk, because the sidewalk is immediately behind the curb. the road is relatively narrow. So unless there's no car coming in the other direction, there isn't really an opportunity to go around a puddle or something like that. And so I can understand, and this happens all over the place in a lot of commercial districts, whether it's in Bethesda or Silver Spring. Anytime that there's a sidewalk immediately adjacent to the curb, that can be problematic with people getting splashed. In terms of keeping the water in the roadway, though, I think the taller curb, the mountable curbs at the driveway aprons will keep the water flowing in the roadway, in terms of trying to get it down to the storm drain that exists down at Turner. The permeable surface, a couple things related to that. One is the state is not thrilled with that being in their right of way, because that ultimately the maintenance of such comes down to them. But there are a tremendous number of utilities that go in and under that area, and we would have a hard time meeting any standards for permeable pavement in this area with all the services and utilities that are in the proximity. It's hard when we're dealing with such these like really small areas with the driveway aprons. There are numerous driveway aprons, and then all the other utilities that are going in and out, to have something that would be permeable, that would be functional, and that the state would accept. I think you'll have a lot more latitude as you do things on town-owned right-of-way. You can accept responsibility for anything that you want in your right-of-way in the villages. So that's maybe you can get a lot more creative than you can with the state.
Okay, I think
Thank you.
Alice.
Hi, yes. I'm Allison Peterson. I just want to circle back real quick. I am one of the lost and forgotten off of Thornapple, and I just wanted to go on record saying thank you, thank you, thank you. As a parent that has both used a stroller and my kids commute daily to Chevy Chase Elementary School on that sidewalk, I just want to say thank you. I definitely think that the utility pole should, if it was I believe Michael had said, maybe not, sorry, about we only do this once, let's do it right. I would love for you guys to consider looking more into that, just because of the strollers and bike riders. Even without something, invading this space, I have witnessed a few different boys who walk with my young daughter who have actually pushed each other into that street. And so, just not paying attention. And so I'm so happy that this is happening to make it a bit wider, to make people more aware of the commute. There's been a huge turnaround, I feel like, in the neighborhood with young children. And I am so happy for Jean's comments about, yes, this is a state freeway or whatever, but the pedestrians are going to be on this. There's more young children. There will be more in the years to come. I'm on Dead End Delafield, and there has been almost a full turnaround of young children. And I also just want to put on the record, I know this is not this project, so I'm sorry to take up your time, but we would love a crosswalk or a stop sign. We don't have sidewalks over here, so all our kids are commuting through the neighborhoods to get over to where this project is. But that's just my last shout out of the forgotten Thornapple. We don't really have safety for sidewalks or crosswalks over to Brookville. But that being said, would love for that to also be on everyone's radar. But I'm so happy that this project is moving forward. Obviously, coordinate with Chevy Chase Elementary School and potential other schools when you do start this project, so their patrols can make sure that the kids are crossing safely and getting home to the other side of Brookville when this begins. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Allison. Everyone's really nice. I really appreciate that. George.
Thanks, Michael, and thank you, Jason, Brian, everyone, and your team is really informative. I apologize for having to double back on something because my Wi-Fi is slightly cutting out, so I think I missed this. You said you were doing something at the crosswalks at Brookville and Raymond, and I was just wondering if you could kind of repeat and clarify a little bit about what the improvement that's going in there is.
There's an existing crosswalk at Raymond.
Yeah,
and on the ADA ramp on the opposite, on the west side, on the section 3 side, is not compliant, and SHA has asked us to upgrade that to a compliant ADA ramp on that side.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that crosswalk will be updated and redone. I think it was said earlier that it's going to be a 10-foot wide crosswalk there, with updated striping, and both ramps will be updated to be ADA compliant. And then there's the new crosswalk coming in at Bradley. That's the one that we really have been fighting for. And we're even asking them if they would allow us to put in a stop sign. So we learned that on this call. So
yeah, I heard that part. Yeah, it was just the Raymond bit. My Wi-Fi was cutting out a little bit.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Allison, is that a new hand or an old hand? There we go. Took it down. Okay. Okay. Are there any other questions? Do any of my council members have anything to say? I see Arthur, Katie.
Yeah, this is Arthur Alexander. About 3 years ago, I wrote a column for the Martin's edition about why do things take so long, and it was the sidewalks that we were talking about. And then 2 years ago, I did an update on that. And now we're approaching the end, but it'll be probably 4 years from when we first started this till we lay concrete. So things do take long. Hopefully we get them done. And it looks like it's been a steady march through about 4 council chairs, 2 village managers, but we'll keep at it.
Mm-hmm. Andrew?
Just wanted to add, things don't have to take that long when they're in the village itself. That doesn't, when we're not dealing with the state, with the state of Maryland. So, we were able to fix shortly after figuring out an agreement between neighbors how to deal with the end of Quincy with the parking situation and widening the road. That was something that was turned around relatively fast, but here we have to jump through all these hoops with the state, and that's, I think, what's delaying all of this.
Absolutely. Katie?
Well, I just want to thank previous chairs and council members and village managers and everyone it takes a village. Obviously the process, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And as a runner, who runs on Brookville Road and does a little Hail Mary, especially on that strip between like Cummings and Shepherd and Turner, where the sidewalk is about this big right now. I'm super excited. I'm psyched for a higher sidewalk, a wider sidewalk, and safety for all. So keep up the good work. Let's keep going. I'm so excited.
What a great way! What a great way to end. Thank you, council members, and Jason. Thank you, and thank you to your team, especially. This is a great plan, and really, I know how much detail goes into it. So I really do appreciate all the hard work. And we will follow up. I will probably send you a follow-up email tomorrow with next steps, starting some of those conversations with the residents that directly abut this stretch of road. So everyone, there are plans in the office. If you want to have a conversation with me, feel free. Please just schedule that time so that I can give you my full attention. But you can come in and look at the plans and we can have a conversation about any element. And I have taken 2 pages of notes here, so I have all of your comments and we'll be following up on all of them. So thank you very much. Jason, any final words?
Nope, I
Thanks,
think
everyone.
I'm good.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.